Hello, thank you for joining us for Building Strong Communities. I'm Erica Manny, the Chief Executive Officer for the American Red Cross Central Appalachia region. I hope this show will provide you with vital information to keep you and your loved ones safe. Together, we can build strong and resilient communities across the Mountain State. The mission of the American Red Cross is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. The Red Cross aspires to turn compassion into action so that all people affected by disaster across the country and around the world receive care, shelter, and hope. Our communities are ready and prepared for disasters. Everyone has access to safe, life-saving blood and blood products. All members of our armed services and their families find support and comfort whenever needed. And in an emergency, there are always trained individuals nearby, ready to use their Red Cross skills to save lives. Through this show, we'll provide you with critical, life-saving information for you, your family, and your community. In today's episode, we'll be joined by Sharon Kesselring, a 34-year veteran of the American Red Cross who has worked in all of our lines of service during her career and is currently the Executive Director of the Ohio River Valley chapter of the American Red Cross in Parkersburg, West Virginia. We will let you know how you can help those in need this holiday season with our campaign, Give Something That Means Something. Thank you for joining us today, Sharon. You have had a wonderful long career with the Red Cross, and we are really looking forward to hearing more about your experience today.
So happy to be here today, Erica. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And you've been with the Red Cross, as I mentioned, for over 3 decades. What first brought you to the organization in 1990?
The first thing that brought me to the organization was the fact that I had participated at a blood drive, not only giving blood, but acting as a mascot at the blood drive, which allowed me to be Dracula at a college blood drive. It piqued my interest in everything that occurs at Red Cross, and as a result, when a part-time position came open, I applied. That eventually, within a couple of months, led to a full-time position in blood services.
Well, you've mentioned some positions, and you've certainly had various roles at the organization. Can you talk about those?
So I was blood services coordinator for about 14 years. That meant I created and set up the blood drives, made sure we had enough blood donors, food, things like that at it. We also then did what was referred to as emergency services director at that time, and I did that for 4 years, including the horrific years of Katrina, Rita, and Wilma, and the girls gone wild, as we said back then. And then we did 7 years as the financial development director at what was then the Mid-Ohio Valley chapter, and after that became executive director of the Ohio River Valley chapter.
Well, you've certainly seen it all with the Red Cross, and I wonder if you can talk to us about what you find most compelling among our services.
I tell you, there's just things about each service that's most compelling. It's the fact that my own life has been saved because of a blood donor, or actually 3 blood donors giving blood during the holiday time at a time when I so desperately need it. My body was so sick at that point. But then for service to armed forces, I've had many relatives that have served in the armed forces that really needed that messaging, that emergency communication going on. With our disaster services, you know, I've had so many close friends that have had such suffering because of homes burning and things like that. It's every single service that I find most compelling, and whatever we're doing at the time, most compelling.
So you've mentioned a lot about the Red Cross, and we've changed over the years. What kind of changes have you seen take place?
Wow. I like to say, as you know, there's the right way, the wrong way, the Red Cross way, and give it 5 minutes and it'll change. and that's the motto I've lived by my whole life with Red Cross, because it does change always for the better. Though it may not feel like it at the time, there's always very good reasons for it to change, and they are always reasons that people then are able to receive our services so much more quickly, so much more efficiently. It's all for the betterment of those that we serve.
So you certainly know a lot about the Red Cross. You've seen it, in every line of service. What do you think is your favorite part about your job?
It's our volunteers. The initial gut reaction would be the people we serve, but quite frankly, it's the volunteers. They are superheroes in my book. They are 95% of our workforce, and they do most super horrific jobs that are known to mankind when they're with Red Cross. They get up in the middle of the night and get out of their warm beds and go help people in disasters. They stand by at blood drives to help check people in and make sure they're okay after the blood donation. They do so much for our military. Oh my goodness sakes, they do so much for our military. Our volunteers are just marvelous people that give so much of themselves, and I can never thank them enough.
They are true heroes, and it is a very amazing thing to be able to work with volunteers who care so much, and that's why they're out there doing it. So how do those that we're serving respond to our volunteer teams?
I have been on calls with our disaster volunteers where they have stood and listened to the story of what just happened at 3 a.m. when the house burnt down. And they have stood there and listened. They've put the arm around the shoulders of the client. They've told them we're there to help, and then they do help. They not only listen to the story and make notes about it, but then they also turn around and give them financial assistance. And the client's like, I can't believe you're doing this. We had no idea where to turn next. Well, Red Cross is where you turn next. We're there to help you, regardless of the situation.
Absolutely. And, talking about situations where people need help, we have just responded to and continue to respond to back-to-back hurricanes with Helene and Milton. And, we have been comparing the public interest and response to this to that of Hurricane Katrina years ago. How do you compare them?
I was comparing them to Katrina when Milton first started showing its ugly head at the end of Helene. Helene's damage was so horrific across so many states, so many thousands impacted, no place to go back home to. We really were looking at sheltering possibly up through the end of the calendar year because people would not have any place to go to without us helping them through with their recovery. And as a result, I was thinking, oh my goodness sakes, this sounds and acts so much like Katrina. But then when Milton came along right behind it, I thought, this really is, because it was Katrina, Rita, and Wilma. We had Katrina and then Rita and then Wilma all within the span of just a few weeks of each other. And again, hitting basically same areas each time. The American people have really stood up and supported us through all this, and as a result, we have been able to get through Helene and Milton even better than we ever did with Katrina.
Well, we are certainly grateful that, there is help from donors and volunteers for those large events like we've just talked about, and also those events that you've seen your chapter area through so many times, right? The home fires, floods, tornadoes, and more. And I wonder if you might be able to tell us, of those things, what's most impactful and why?
I have to say that the one that's most impactful is nothing we've already experienced. It's whatever's going on right now or what's right around the corner, what may happen even tonight or tomorrow, because it's at that time that I see the humanity of our clients that we're serving. I also see the tremendous heroic efforts of our volunteers that are responding. When I see the reports the next day after a house fire of who we served, how we served them, and I see the volunteer that was associated with them, I just want to thank that volunteer again for helping out at really odd times. There's a joke in our chapter that I can't say any longer. Even if there's a tornado at Thanksgiving, our volunteers will get up away from the dinner table to go help total strangers, because that's what happened a couple of years ago. And as a result, the volunteers were all over me about saying that because I jinxed them. So it really is the one that's most compelling is what's what's the next one. It's the very next disaster that our volunteers will be responding to, and really providing that Red Cross service.
Well said, Sharon. And after this quick break, we'll come back with Sharon Kesselring.
Sometimes I dream about you falling through the sky. Can hardly believe my own eyes.
Disasters don't take a break for the holidays. With your help, neither does the Red Cross.
Welcome back to Building Strong Communities. I'm your host, Erica Manny, and if you're just joining us, my guest today is Sharon Kesselring, a 34-year veteran of the American Red Cross, and we've been discussing her experience. Now we're going to turn to Give Something That Means Something and the incentives associated with that program. Thanks for joining us today, Sharon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're approaching the holidays, and this is a time of year that we are encouraging people to come out and donate blood. Can you talk to us about that and why it's so important right now at the holiday season?
Talk about something that that means something when you give it, and that's a donation of blood. Blood can't come from anybody but a human, and only 3% of the population actually donates blood, and yet 60-some% is actually eligible to donate blood. Wide variance there. But that's why it's so important that we maintain a stable blood supply, especially during the holiday season. Let's face it, this time of year, we all get busy. We have parties and we have family, we have gift shopping, and just so many different things to do. And the last thing we think about is giving blood. But we need to make sure that everybody remembers to do that. So one way we do help them remember that at this time of year, especially throughout the last 2 months of the year, we always have a few little thank yous for them taking the time to give blood. This year we have two very special ones I want to talk about. One is our socks. So they're friend socks, and I happen to have those here, and they're coming up here in a couple of weeks, okay? And then the other one will be a special t-shirt that we have closer to the end of the year, and it's a long sleeve tee, so it's really perfect for this time of year. But again, it helps blood donors be thanked for taking that time in their very busy holiday season to help save lives, because there is no other resource than the actual human blood.
Well, thank you for pointing out that giving blood is certainly a way to give something that means something this holiday season. And if people are considering giving blood and maybe they've never done it before, how long does it take to donate?
It takes about an hour, maybe a couple more minutes than that, depending if you're a first-time donor. But it really only takes about an hour altogether. That's your health history and checking your temperature and things like that before you actually get on the table to donate blood. But the actual donation itself takes less than 10 minutes. And after you're done, then you get to go into canteen, talk with our marvelous volunteers that are there to support you, and have a snack and just enjoy yourself before you leave and resume all your normal holiday activity.
Well, great. Is there a way that a donor might be able to save some time if they're going to go and donate blood and they want to make it as quick as possible?
There is a way to save some time. Donate the marvelous blood donor app, American Red Cross blood donor app, to your smartphone, and you're able then to go on there and do your health history prior to your donation. The morning of your donation, you can actually go in there and answer all those questions right then. Save yourself lots of times.
Well, that's fantastic. And you mentioned that, it is so important to give blood because this is something that is not manufactured, but
right.
We have to count on people to come out and give. Do you have any information about, how much blood might be needed for, you mentioned holiday travel, car accidents? It's a lot of blood that's needed when somebody comes into the ER for that.
It is, and the human body could have maybe 12 pints of blood in it, okay, or around there. Depending on if you're a man or woman, how big you are, things like that are factored in. But for myself, though I was not in a car accident, I was in a crisis situation with needing blood. And it was 4 days before Christmas, and I was needing what turned out to be 3 pints of blood. And actually, the doctor wanted me to have 4, but I said, Doc, I got to go home and start doing some things for Christmas. I promised to be good. So he released me after 3 units that I received within about a 18-hour period it took to get those 3 units into my body. It was so important that there be that on the shelf ready to go, because it can take up to 3 days, sometimes even longer, to process the blood to make it ready for transfusion.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think one of the things that I remind people is it can take up to 100 units at times for one car accident victim. And so whether it is 3 units or 100 units, you mentioned making sure that blood is on the shelves when those crises happen is the way that we can make sure the Red Cross is there.
That's
in
right.
times of disaster.
It would be a horrific idea to have a doctor come to a patient's family and say, we don't know where we're going to get the blood. We're looking everywhere, but donations have been slow at this time of year. So please, let's not ever have a patient's family hear that message. Let's make sure always to give blood during the holiday season. It's so essential.
Thank you for that reminder. And I know in our area, people are always ready to roll up a sleeve and very generous about
Yes.
coming out and making that blood donation. So thanks for that holiday reminder when it's particularly hard to remember to work that into the schedule.
Right.
So I mentioned that the Red Cross is always there for disasters. We're talking about emergencies when people need the blood supply, but other disasters come to mind too when people think about the response of the Red Cross. Can you tell us about how the Red Cross responds when disaster strikes?
So, for instance, when a home burns down, and this time of year is really bad, we're in fire season now, when furnaces don't act right, or people get things too close to a furnace, to a heat source, and they catch fire and burn down the house. There are a lot of steps you need to take. But the way Red Cross responds is we are notified of the disaster, of the house fire. We reach out to the family to make sure they're available for us to speak with at the scene. We go to the scene, we verify the fact that there was this disaster and that was a major or destroyed residence, and then we get to work at hearing their story and working then to take care of their immediate financial needs in order to have temporary shelter, food, clothing, replacement medication for life-saving medications. There's so many things that a family has to have immediately. After that immediate assistance is provided, then a recovery volunteer actually reaches out to the family within a couple of days to make sure that they are well on their way to recovery, that they're following a good plan, that if they've had any bumps in the road, the recovery volunteer then makes sure that they get the assistance they need, whether that be additional financial assistance or a referral to a specific person or place that would be able to help the family with that specific need.
Well, thank you for mentioning home fire. It is the most common disaster that the Red Cross responds to. And can you talk to us about how often the Red Cross is responding to disaster?
So we actually respond nationwide to over 60,000 disasters each year, which really kind of just blows the mind. Just think of how many that is per day. And those are not just the big hurricanes, wildfires, windstorms. Those are also these home fires, or a windstorm that puts a tree into someone's house and destroys that house, that type of thing. It may only affect a couple of homes, it may affect only one home, but of all those disasters that we respond to all throughout the year, home fires are the most prevalent of the 60,000 plus we respond to.
And for that reason, the Red Cross not only responds to disasters like home fire, we work to help prevent.
We do. And again, another of those things about Red Cross that's so close to my heart. and that's our Sound the Alarm program, where we install free smoke alarms, but not just that. We also provide home fire prevention education to the families. We help them figure out how the best way is to escape a home, 2 different ways to get out of the home, 2 different ways to make sure that they understand how to get each member of their family out of each room of the house, because you have a couple of minutes, less than 2 minutes, to get out of your home when a fire starts. So it's very important that you are prepared for it, but then also have that alarm that's going off. And we install free smoke alarms in people's homes, especially those at risk communities. Perhaps they're seniors that can't climb and ladders and change batteries anymore. And the type of alarms that we install are they're the type of batteries that last for 10 years, and then you throw away the smoke alarms, because smoke alarms are only good for 10 years. And I really need to say this: if you test your smoke alarm and it goes beep, 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 but it's 12 years old, throw it away anyway, because just because it beep beeps doesn't mean that it'll sense the smoke. So just get rid of it after 10 years. Let us install a new one for you.
Absolutely. As long as there's that replacement ready to come in behind it, that is a very good plan. So we also mention on this show at the beginning that, we want to make sure that people are always in our communities trained and ready for when any kind of emergency might occur. So can you talk to us about our training services?
So training services is one of the main branches of Red Cross. Includes things like CPR training, first aid training, learn to swim. Those are types of trainings that people need to take to be better prepared to respond to emergencies. One of my pet ones is what we call hands-only CPR. And it's a non-certified class, but it helps the lay person become a lay responder in the event of seeing somebody suddenly collapse in front of them, and helps you help that person actually survive as far as keeping oxygenation going throughout their body by simple compressions. And we teach how to do that. And it really is one of those things that's very dear to my heart. Someone did that to my father many, many years ago, and as a result we had him for 10 years, much longer than what he would have been that night if somebody had not done that to him.
Thank goodness for people who get trained and are willing to help others when the time arises.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Learn to Swim classes, and we do have Learn to Swim classes through Red Cross in the community in your chapter, and amazing volunteers who make it happen. Can you talk to us about it?
We have a program in the Ohio River Valley chapter, specifically in the Parkersburg area, Wood County area of West Virginia, that is run by 2 very efficient, very time-conscious yet very efficient people that do this all for free. And they do a youth Learn to Swim and an adult Learn to Swim 2 weeks each summer, courtesy of the city of Parkersburg allowing us to use the city pool facility free of charge and the lifeguard staff free of charge. And also then these ladies make sure that they pull together all of their certified instructors and helpers to be able to do not just a couple of kids and adults, but over 200 children each year. And the adults, not as many, but it's because, if you're an adult and don't know how to swim, it takes a little coaxing to actually get you in the water the first time. But they are amazing people, and they coax them in and they get them going. And we're a water community in Wood County, and we want to make sure everybody understands how to react if there's ever a water emergency.
Well, thank you for explaining, the Learn to Swim program, and we are grateful that the community in Parkersburg rallies around that work. And our work dates back to the Civil War at the American Red Cross and Clara Barton. I wonder if you can talk to us about our Service to the Armed Forces work.
So, I have performed service to the Armed Forces work once upon a time in one of my previous positions with Red Cross, but did not even then have the concept of what all it was involved in service to armed forces. So the very basic of it is that we are responsible through our United States Congressional Charter to provide emergency communications between family members back home and their service people anywhere in the world. So as a result, if someone has a family member that has had a heart attack or has unfortunately passed, or maybe has had a baby, then we're contacted by the family, given the service member's information, and we make sure that everything in the message has been corroborated by a physician or a funeral home or the hospital, whatever it is, and then we simply get that message out right away. And it gets to the service member, who takes it to their commanding officer and asks them for emergency leave to be granted based on what the Red Cross message indicates. So it's a very simple job of doing it. It's something we do hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of times a day, depending on what's going on in the military world and how many people are actually deployed. And it's something that we do that, but we also do other things with SAF. We have wonderful training, educational situations that family members can take. We can focus on things like how to communicate better, how to live with less stress all year round, not just the holiday time, or even how to communicate between your family members. Children of the military are really in a very unique situation than any other child anywhere. And as a result, we really do have a focus on the military child and are able to help the military child, especially during deployment, but even after deployment's over, we're able to help teach them ways to work with mom or dad back home from being deployed, how we manage to build that relationship back up again. So things have always changed during deployment, and we need to make sure everybody's on board with what really needs to happen.
Thank you for talking about that. And can you talk to us about our presence in VA and VA facilities?
Yeah, that's another one of those things that I really love, the fact that we have specially trained volunteers that go to our VA facilities. They do a couple of different things. One, they help the VA with different organizational events, such as meetings that are held between all the different groups that work within the VA, but also with the volunteer staff and other locations like that within the VA facilities. But we also have our own volunteers that are certified by the VA to go onto the premises, talk with the patients there, and also, this is the one I love the best, is the one with the dogs. We have our specially trained dogs that are taken into the VA to work with the patients there.
Well, it sounds like there are many ways that people could give back through the Red Cross, and if they want to volunteer, they can reach out to redcross.org and hit the volunteer button, call us at 1-800-RED-CROSS, or if you should need help from the American Red Cross, you can contact us at 1-800-RED-CROSS. We're thankful to Sharon Kesselring today for joining us and highlighting the many services of the Red Cross and how you can get involved.